Having said free skirts. But they can do it.
You can try it.
Respectable material.
So I do have one question.
Right, welcome everybody. We are running slightly late, so apologies for that. So, welcome to fellow Cabinet members, councillors and members of the public to this Cabinet meeting at City Hall today. As usual, the agenda papers and public forum submissions are available on the Council's website. Housekeeping. Can I please draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure, which is outlined in the agenda and is currently being displayed on the screen? Thank you. The meeting is being webcast, so please can I remind everyone to speak into the microphone to ensure you are clearly heard. Agenda item 2, public forum. It's just a reminder that statements and questions will be taken at the time the relevant agenda item is discussed. I will reply to questions or ask the relevant Cabinet member to respond. Agenda item 3, apologies for absence. Apologies have been given by the Mayor, who was at an event at the House of Lords. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. Do I have any declarations of interest to declare? Don, I think you do you want to put your microphone on?
Item 8, because I'm a director of Gorham Homes, and I shall be leaving that item. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Agenda item 5, matters referred for consideration by scrutiny or full council. There have been no referrals from scrutiny or full council. Agenda item 6, reports from scrutiny commissions. We do have one report from the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board. I think Tony Dyer was going to come, but there was some suggestion he may have to head on.
I'm afraid Dr. Paddy had to go away to attend to family matters.
Yeah, thanks.
And they had to be taken as sort of read.
Yeah, we've all read the report anyway, so thank you. Agenda item 7, Chair's business. There's none on this occasion. Agenda item 8, so Don, if you want to step back for this one. Purchase of properties for the provision of children's homes, and I'll ask Councillor Asher Craig to introduce his report.
Thank you. So this paper seeks approval for the funding the acquisition of 2 properties from the One Lot Lease development to be used as children's homes. While it is our aspiration that most children requiring care live with families in a family setting, there is a national decline in availability of foster carers and a prediction of growth in numbers of children requiring care. This, alongside growing complexity of needs of children, has led to an increase in the ratio of children placed in residential provision. These properties will help us to deliver high-quality placements within the local area, securing better outcomes for our children in their own communities. They will also secure better value for money for the council by addressing the drivers for the increase in spend and future-proofing the service against increasing demand.
Thank you, Asher. In terms of public forum statements and questions, we received no public forum statements or questions on this item. Do any Cabinet members wish to comment on?
Just briefly, it's really good to see this paper coming forward. And I think One Lot leads the first of the Gorham Homes developments to come forward. It's 55% genuinely affordable homes coming forward on that scheme, council housing. And as well as that, what we're thinking about is what are the wider needs of the city as well. So we're bringing forward children's homes as well, and it shows that we're really thinking about how we can use land in the most effective way to meet the needs of the city, and obviously want to try and keep children in the area, don't we, if we can, because of the challenges that come with out-of-area placements.
Yeah, great, thanks, Tom. Any other Cabinet members? No, thank you. In which case, I'll hand back to Councillor Craig to take the decision, which I support, and will now be displayed on the screen.
Yeah, just before I make the decision, and just following on from what Councillor Renard had said, it's interesting, earlier today I had to review a document that had come to me about, you know, us being held over a barrel, I feel, by the kind of residential care sector. I mean, the prices that we are paying per child are just going through the roof, and there's hardly any room for manoeuvre. Yeah, not only the government has to really take a handle on this, because, you know, it's just fast becoming incredibly expensive, and so growing our own is the only way forward, particularly as we look at the need for sufficiency of placements in the local area. So in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Asha. Agenda item 9, wraparound childcare in primary schools and academies, and I'll introduce this one. This paper seeks approval to accept and spend grant funding from the DFE to support the creation and expansion of wraparound childcare places in primary schools and academies paid for by parents. Starting in September 2024, funding will be allocated on a needs assessment basis where there is evidence of parental demand and a model that will be sustainable by the time funding expires in March 2026. This will empower parents to be able to have more flexibility to return to work and extend their hours. The wraparound childcare will deliver provision that is child-centred, easily accessible, responds to the need of families, including those with special educational needs and disabilities. On this report, we received no public forum statements. There was a public forum question submitted, and that was from Councillor Christine Townsend. Yes, welcome, Christine.
Would you like me to read it out?
Well, unless, I mean, Asha, do you want?
Yeah.
Happy to just respond?
Sorry, did you want to read out the question?
I said, would you like me to read it out?
No, you can read out the question.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I said. So, we know that if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got. So I'm interested to understand what additional strategic planning is going to go into implementing this in order to ensure that our most disadvantaged communities, the primaries that serve those communities, are going to be supported to make sure that they are able to engage with it.
So you're actually highlighting a key challenge for us here in the city, and we should all agree that it's important to break down entrenched inequalities. Wraparound childcare is being expanded to support working parents. The creation of sustainable and stable before and after school childcare will ensure that our parents re-entering the workforce will not be restricted from taking up roles within the school hours. Funding for the expansion of wraparound childcare will be based on parental demand, and both working parents and those returning to work must be included by primaries when measuring sufficiency as a means of eligibility for funding. Now, the places will be paid for by parents, and whilst the use of tax-free childcare is essential, the childcare element of universal credit, and that's for those families on benefits but also who work, will be promoted with equal measure to highlight that lower income families can get up to 85% of their childcare costs paid for by universal credit and can be claimed 1 month in advance as per the changes introduced in July 2023. Any supplementary?
Okay, so that's a good understanding from the perspective of the government and who that is that they're trying to target and how it is that those on universal credits might be able to engage. My question is relating to those schools who currently serve our most disadvantaged and therefore have arguably the greatest distance to travel in order to engage with this particular project within the structures in Bristol. So, is there any additional support, or is there anything within the application of this grant coming from the Labour administration to ensure that those primaries in those communities who are currently up to their eyeballs in work are going to be better able than those maybe across the road that serve less disadvantaged and more affluent families to be able to engage in this?
I think my response to you is, first and foremost, we will do everything in our power to work with those schools in our most disadvantaged areas. For me, particularly our our maintained schools are the ones that are operating in some of our most deprived wards. So we will work with each of those schools independently to ensure that the take-up by parents in those schools is maximised as much as possible. So yes, the onus may be on those schools, but we will just have to look at what resource we have to support them and ensure that the take-up is the take-up is appropriate. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Sure.
Is that the?
Yeah. Then do any cabinet members want to comment? Yeah, Nicola.
Just to really welcome Miss Asher. It's no surprise really for as a working mum with 2 children. I think this is a really, really important important part of trying to actually have a healthy family and a health and well-being approach to women in particular working. So I really commend anything in this direction. One of the reasons why I could sit quite fine getting here today was because I was trying to deal with my children after school, and so I think it's really good. Thank you very much, Asher. And whoever told me that it was going to be easy once your kids go into school was definitely fibbing when I had 2 babies. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicola. Anyone else? No? Okay, in terms of the decisions to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 10, increasing allocation for Bristol Smoking Cessation Service, stopping the start of the new smoke-free generation funding. I will ask Councillor Ellie King to introduce the support.
Thank you. This paper seeks approval to accept and spend additional government grant funding of up to £742,000 per year for our Bristol Smoking Cessation Service. The majority of funding is required to be focused on smoking cessation, but there is some flexibility for funding to support wider tobacco efforts to control youth vaping. Our public health teams work closely with our schools and our wider communities to measure and address the rise in vaping through our Healthy Schools programme, and this includes free bespoke training for schools and partners. We also fund specific enforcement work on youth vaping from our trading standards teams. Tobacco addiction remains the single biggest cause of premature death and leading modifiable risk factor for poor pregnancy outcomes. This service therefore helps children to make the best start in life by supporting our ambition to tackle health inequalities and focus on preventative and early intervention approaches. I will say that this funding is extremely welcome and will be a significant uplift to the amount of money that we're currently able to put into smoking cessation. However, nothing replaces the benefit of giving a meaningful uplift to the public health grant overall. Thanks.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks, Ellie. Is there any other cabinet? Oh, sorry, no, we received no public forum statements or questions on this one. Do any cabinet members want to comment? No, obviously it's a hugely important bit of work that we do here, and as Ellie says, it would be better if the overall public health grant had raised in recent years instead of us having to make deal with a similar sum of money, which is therefore less each year, worth less each year, and buy less each year. So back to you, Ellie, take the decision which I support and will now be displayed on the screen.
Thank you. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Agenda item 11, Changing Futures, Bristol Multiple Disadvantage Strategy, Changing Futures Programme Contract Extension. I'll ask Councillor Helen Holland.
Thanks very much, Craig, and I think that this is a really important report. Obviously all the reports we take are important, but I think that this is about being able to access additional funding to be able to do things that probably all the professionals in the field have known that they needed to do, but needed to have the additional resource in order to be able to do it. So in 2021 we won the £3 million for this programme, and this report reports that we've bid for an extra 800,000 and been successful in that bid to be able to extend it. So Changing Futures works with some of the most disadvantaged people in our community, people who are experiencing multiple disadvantages. So it's also, the heart of it is the My Team Around Me approach, because when you talk to any of those people who, if they do have confidence, which they very often don't, in agencies that they've been around before and have failed them, basically, one of the things that they'll always say is that they don't want to have to tell their story multiple times to different agencies. So the My Team Around Me approach does mean that people, whether they're from mental health, from drug and alcohol services, domestic abuse, whatever it is, homelessness, that it draws that team together so that the people have confidence in the team that's working with them. I think that we should credit here particularly the lead partner organisation, which is Set in Step, who've been doing a fantastic job on this piece of work. And also the report mentions the work that we're now doing with women, and particularly women who've been in prison or are in prison now, thinking about their pathway when they leave prison, because as we know that's a particularly problematic thing for women who have been in prison. And the lead partner on that is the Nelson Trust, who are doing some brilliant work. So it not only obviously acknowledges the additional money that we've brought in, which is all to the good, but hopefully when the money runs out, this will be how we do things, and it needs to be embedded in a sustainable way. But it's also led to us working in a co-productive way, which is we're doing more and more of in adult social care, and is hard work, but well worth doing. So talking to people with lived experience about their experience of the services and shaping services to meet their needs. So we've got now going to have a multiple disadvantage strategy, and that is going to be produced with people who we have worked with and we will continue to work with. So I think it's an excellent piece of work, and I think the fact that we got more money from government and the lottery to support it shows that the outside partners think it is too. So very happy to present the report.
Great, thanks, Helen. We received no public forum statements or questions on this one. Do any cabinet members want to comment? Tom?
It's brilliant to see this coming forward. I really well, particularly my sort of prior background, prior to being in cabinet and council in mental health and mental health campaigning. And it's lovely to see a programme of work that's got people with lived experience, so rooted firmly at the centre, where actually it's nothing about us without us, and that those people are involved in decision making in a meaningful way. So co-production's a term I often hear bandied around. Yeah, we're co-producing. It's like, oh, are you, or are you just consulting? But actually, we've got a programme here that's working meaningfully, and it's how we can continue to embed the learning and this work across the council and other departments. We're developing a new homelessness strategy, as current one will run out this year. And one of the steers I've given is we need to make sure we're involved with people with experience, make sure we're joining up the work that Independent Futures are involved in. So it's just brilliant to see this continued investment in the city. Obviously, it's a bit frustrating you're getting pots of money here and there for 1 year extensions, just make things easy to plan. But despite that, what a brilliant bit of work it's been over the last 8, 9, 10 years, when you sort of think about Golden Key.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Yeah, Councillor Renard's kind of said a lot of what I wanted to say, but yeah, along the lines of the work of co-production, we've been walking our talk. I've seen, again today, we're about to launch our employment and skills strategy for the next 5 years, and I was gobsmacked by the amount of co-production that had gone into it with communities right across the piece. So in terms of the work that has gone into developing this strategy, definitely commend this, and kind of look forward to the extension to this work.
Great, thanks. Asha, anyone else? No? In which case I'll hand back to Councillor Hollands to take the decision, which I support, and will now be displayed on the screen.
Thanks. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the book.
Great, thanks, Helen. Agenda item 12, Clean Air Zone Evaluation Reports. Councillor Don Alexander will introduce this report on behalf of the Mayor.
Thank you, Craig. I was pleased to see these figures, which show a huge drop in nitrogen dioxide pollution over the first year of the Clean Air Zone. It's down by 10% across Bristol and down almost 13% inside the Clean Air Zone. As the Director of Public Health has set out, this improvement is important for our health and our children's health now and in the future. I know that Ellie will be particularly keen as the portfolio holder for public health to speak to these benefits, given the permanent lung damage that nitrogen dioxide can cause and the deaths which it contributes to. As a councillor for an area on the edge of Bristol, I am pleased that the air quality has improved outside the CAS as well as inside, totally dispelling the myth that the CAS would disperse traffic and make air quality worse. In Bedminster Down, nitrogen dioxide pollution is down 27%. And in the heart of the city, by the BRI and Children's Hospital, one sensor has it down 27.5%. In my own ward, levels of nitrogen dioxide pollution at the Portway junctions with Sylvan Way and Roman Way average out at around 50% of the legal limit. These initial numbers from our first annual publication are positive, and after their initial State 1 report last year, hope that the official verdict from JACU in their State 2 report later in this year will be as well. The aim of the CAS was to drive behaviour change, and with 9 out of every 10 journeys into the CAS being compliant, this has worked effectively. Another positive symbol of behaviour change is the comparison that the proportion of drivers paying the daily CAS charge has risen by around 1/5, while PCNs issued for non-payment is down around 1/3. And despite challenges during the first year around driver numbers, it looks like bus passenger numbers are up as people adjust and take up public transport. Footfall in the city has also stayed fairly steady, except for St Nick's Market, which has seen a 16% jump, proving that more people are using public transport or active travel as a direct consequence of the CAS. One point we're extremely proud of is how we successfully negotiated with government for support for Bristolians despite opposition parties pressing us to rush to a CAS. Millions of pounds of support have been paid out to Bristol residents and businesses to help them, and we are planning a further push to publicise the support which is still available, having secured another £11 million on Clean Air Day in June. Since then, we have also opened Bristol's new first train station in almost a century at Portway Park and Ride in my own ward, giving an option for thousands of motorists to turn into rail commuters. I also want to highlight the importance of the hard-won local exemptions for the first 4 months of the CAS, which saw 350,000 journeys exempted to help smooth the transition. Over the first year, that number rises to more than 550,000. And during the first 6 weeks, to help drivers adjust to the CAS, those who receive PCNs were given a time-limited opportunity to pay the CAS daily charge rather than the full PCN. 73% of PCNs issued during this period were closed following payment of the daily CAS charge. While there has been understandable but somewhat undue focus on the financial data, it is the air quality that matters most. Our objective is clean air, not a clean air zone, and not net proceeds. As the Mayor has set out in its foreword to the report, we were right to secure support before starting the CAS, and we were right to ignore those who called for a charging CAS to cover the whole city. If our progress cleaning up our air continues, then in coming years, the CAS will come to an end with clean air here to stay. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. So, now to public forum statements and questions. On this report, we have 2 public forum statements. The first is from Christina Biggs, Bristol Clean Air Alliance. Clean Air Alliance, yeah. You have 1 minute. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you. Christina Biggs, representing Bristol Clean Air Alliance. We very much welcome the Clean Air Zone, and as you may be aware, we consistently encourage BCC to adopt a fair and effective zones. We're delighted that there's been such a good result in the first year. Things to be aware of, though, is that some of the modelling did actually predict a drop anyway in emissions because of natural turnover in the fleet. So I think we could just check, just check what that would have been, and just make sure that that's still, better than what would have happened anyway. We would like to point out also, because it does not address particulates. So in the original 300 deaths, actually 168 of those deaths are due to particulate pollution. So while we want to see the CAS continue to work to clear up the rest of the pollution, we'd like to see more action on wood burning in particular, especially when it's not completely necessary, maybe more as a status statement, as it were. Finally, yes, we think, we understand, we think you replacing the transport levies directly with the CAS earnings. We think that's a mistake because CAS doesn't last forever. You're going to have to still find the money. And we would urge you obviously to be more generous with the transport levy to BRACA because they need the money, they really do, and the transport levy has been frozen for a couple of years now, and that will impact on buses.
That's your minute now, but thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Next up is a statement from the South West Transport Network and Rail Future Sevenside, David Rudgewell. David, you have a minute.
Thank you. So, I think we've just got to remember this is a public health measure, not a transport measure. It's about saving lives, it's about respiratory illness, suffering respiratory illness from before time. It's a serious issue. We need to keep the levels of respiratory illness down in the city. We need to make sure we've got clean air to breathe, and asthma can lead to death. You know, we've got the regional children's hospitals and regional hospitals right in the heart of our city for the South West region. So I welcome this, I welcome the clean air, and I welcome the moves forward. But we've got to think about how we go forward. It's not about bringing the private car more and more into Bristol. It should be about reducing the need, as Don said, for the private car in Bristol. So that's got to be about offering walking, cycling, sustainable measures of entering the city. New rail station at Port Brady, new rail station actually down Metro West that Mayor Reece champions very heavily with down north. But also about the buses. And working class people, some of the poorest people in this city, need to have alternatives to driving dirty cars into the city. And we've got many working class estates without a public bus service. Only place like this is Stoke-on-Trent. We need to get those bus services back. Ashton Vale, Aubrey Court, Steventon, Brislington, Dean, all have no public bus services. Parts of Southbury Ward, we need to use the TAS money, but also with the levy. And the levy should be added, not replaced. The levy by law, you collect when we have a weapon, not a choice, it's in the grant. But the levy TAS money should be added to make sure there's adequate provision to bring buses back to working class communities, I stress working class communities, who can't afford to change their cars, who can't afford to go forward. So I welcome this, but we need a lot more work to do here. We've got to keep cleaning up Bristol's air. And I say thank you to the Director of Public Health and System in the Gallows. Thank you. Christina.
Thank you, David. I allowed you way more than 1 minute now. Thank you for that. So now on to questions. There were 6 public forum questions submitted between 5 people. The first is from Suzanne Audrey, but I don't see Suzanne here. No. The second was from Simon Hoback. I don't think Simon's coming. No. Next, Martin Firth. Martin, are you here? Yeah, hi, Martin. Please ask your question.
I too am supporting the Clean Air Zone. I'm a 76-year-old retired academic and I still cycle into Bristol every day. And I congratulate the Council and in particular in the results of the Clean Air Zone so far. But before we become too complacent about what has been achieved and being very aware of the pitfalls of modelling upon which the Clean Air Zone was largely based, and has some experience of the pitfalls of modelling. And there are 2, I believe, interrelated problems with the Clean Air Zone. One is the Cumberland Basin flyover, which actually is the road which is designed to take traffic away from Bristol and the city, but which is included in the Clean Air Zone, with consequent penalties for those who are running businesses in South Liberty Lane. One company paying £1,500 a day to get his lorries.
Can we just move on to your question, please? What was your question, sorry?
Well, the question is whether the Mayor and the Council are happy that because all 5 bridges over the Avon are within the Clean Air Zone, it means that all residents of the non-compliant cars in south of Bristol, with Wood, Hartcliffe, etc., are denied access to the north of Bristol, and thus taking a huge detour around to St Philip's Causeway. So, in a sense, these people who live in the most socially and economically deprived areas of Bristol are being deprived of access to North Bristol. Is this something with which the Council are happy, or should they be rethinking the inclusion of the flyover?
Thank you. Don, did you want to take that one?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as a councillor for Lawrence Western, I'd like to point out that the deprived areas of Bristol aren't just in the south, they are also in the north. Regarding the modelling, the council was mandated by government to implement a clean air zone. We know that. This question about the Cumberland Basin is probably the most asked question as far as I'm concerned, because many people from my ward were confused by it and didn't understand it. The Cumberland Basin was included, while some trips do not go into the city centre, many enter the city from the Plimsoll Bridge, as do many trips that go from the A30 370 to the Portway. Nobody in the city is cut off, as 9 out of 10 journeys are compliant. And for those that still use non-compliant cars, the A369 links the north and south of the city. However, we do encourage people to change their vehicle to a compliant one, and that's the whole point of the CAS. Not that anyone should be cut off, but that people should change their vehicle to a compliant one. And as you've heard, we still already do have support available for people who would like to make that change. The modelling was supplied by JACU, Joint Air Quality Unit. I know there was some discussion regarding whether this was entirely necessary, and it was at their insistence that it was. And of course, the whole clean air zone was something that we were obliged to do by government via the Joint Air Quality Unit. So that was a discussion that was had. We expressed our own concerns about that particular intervention, but that wasn't upheld by JACU.
Do you have a supplementary question?
I don't doubt that there are separately deprived areas in your ward, Councillor, but my point was that a large part of South Bristol is socially and economically deprived. When you say that you make provision for people to change their cars, what for the population in South Bristol, those that haven't got them, I find that an extraordinarily naive point of view to take, quite frankly.
Do you have a question? Sorry, question.
So, no, I don't. Well,
okay.
You have total faith in the modelling, which I don't. And as I said earlier, as a retired academic, I know the pitfalls of modelling.
Okay, do you have a question? No, you don't have a question, okay. I mean, to be honest, you know, this is an area where we particularly pushed back on throughout the process of setting up the clean air zone in the first place. So it's something that we're aware of, not massively chuffed about, but something we've had to contend with. And hence why we fought for a financial assistance programme. Anyway, the next question is from Dan Ackroyd. Dan, please ask your question.
Yeah, I will in a moment. I also submitted an urgent question under EPR 5.3. I realised that I probably need to have your consent to ask the question.
Yeah, it's not about any agenda item on the cabinet paper, so it's not been admitted, I'm afraid. But we can take the questions that you have on this paper.
I'm going to ask it anyway. The rules don't say it has to be about an agenda item.
Well, they do. Yeah, no, so it is quite clear that it has to be about an item on the agenda.
That rule is not present in the Constitution. My question is, well, the urgent question I have, following the...
There's no point, I mean, we're not going to answer the question.
I know, but it needs to be put to the Cabinet. Following the public rights way.
Submit it by email, and we can get a full response from the Mayor's office for you.
I'm going to read it out. Which Cabinet member has signed off on the decision of the council lawyers to change sides in the court hearing tomorrow? I have submitted this question properly. It's really bizarre that you're not answering it or not accepting it. I will email you afterwards. I refer you to my question 12, my question for agenda item 12. I don't feel the need to read that one out.
So on the CAS paper, you had a question. Do you intend to ask?
Well, okay. So why did the BBC get the paper before it was published on the Bristol Council website?
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, the 1 year of the Clean Air Zone finished on the 28th of November, and there was quite a short window then, given that it was Christmas and New Year, in order to bring the report together and then to produce it in an attractive and presentable manner so that people would like to read it. It was very, very tight, and so the general public can find out more about it, because it's not just about informing councillors or people in this meeting. Some headline figures and facts from that report went to the BBC the day before. I don't think that's unusual or particularly controversial, actually.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, my supplementary question is related to the other cabinet paper that was provided for the Osm committee. All the decision for that cabinet paper of where to spend the money was
Yeah,
taken.
we'll come to that one next. So we can.
Yeah, but it leads on from the question about the papers. Is that I realised that the Clean Air report took a long time to prepare, but the actual financial figures and proposal of where to spend the money was taken in December. So why wasn't that paper made available in proper time?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I mean, I'll take that one actually. I guess in order to have a balanced conversation on this, this is a public health intervention, and if you launch straight into money, you end up in a ULERS kind of conversation, which has happened in London, which has been very lacking nuance and been conspiracy theorist driven and a range of other things that we wanted to avoid, which is why we were very keen from the beginning that we published proceeds and clean air intervention kind of outputs at the same time. So that was the logic behind those two papers coming together.
Okay.
Thank you. Next question is from Councillor Townsend.
Thank you. So this is about the enforcement. So there's over 93,000 that were written off. I raised this Osm. The suggestion I had, and I'm wondering if the Cabinet Member for Transport agrees that this is a good way forward, is to have the write-offs split up into maybe 3 monthly sections, so that we can be confident that the numbers of write-offs have gone down, which would correspond with the answer that we received as of Osm earlier in the week.
Dealing with PCNs isn't something new to us. We deal with them all the time because of parking and bus lanes. So there's nothing unusual here. Perhaps quite a large number, but I don't know why you would advocate for a special, particular procedure or something different from anywhere else.
Do you have a supplementary?
Well, yeah, because if the enforcement is not there, why will people pay?
Well, exactly. That's why we do have enforcement. We have enforcement for parking offences in car parks and double yellow lines and also bus lanes. Something that we do all the time. It's just business as usual for us.
So, I mean, we have a corporate debt policy that follows an ethical collection of debts in general. So is your position that we should stop that and start?
No, this is... you and I've asked you a question about this before, my Councillor Cheney, when you wrote off over £3 million of penalty charges. And if you're writing this off, my question is, how is it that you're going to expect people to pay if there's huge numbers of charges being written off? Over 93,000 journeys. I've just done a quick bit. That's over 250 journeys a day that are being written off every day that the CAS has been in existence. And the answer we got at Osm was that there would have been loads at the beginning because the systems were settling down, and there were some other reasons that were given as well. And what all I've said is, why don't we have a breakdown of that to check that? Because another 12 months, if we're still, how will you know that the enforcement, that what's been told by the senior officer is actually the case?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a range of details here. I mean, the majority were non-UK vehicles that obviously DVLA don't have on their records, so that makes it particularly difficult. There are a range of others. We can send you this detailed response if that helps answer your question. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure what. So you're asking for the same detail again, or different detail?
No, the first 3 months, or the first couple of months, was about the system settling down. Right, so the write-offs would have been included because you had a 12 months total. And then what Osm were told is that next year we should expect those numbers to go down. But what I'm suggesting is that over the course of 12 months, you should be able to evidence those numbers going down anyway, if at the beginning of the system was settling down and therefore you wrote off more at the beginning.
So thank you, everyone. Do we have any Cabinet members who want to comment? Marley? Don, your microphone's still on.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd really welcome this coming forward. Really encouraging to see how much it's already cut air pollution, particularly outside the BRI. I think that was over 27%, which is really, really positive. It's also timely to see that these papers got presented when tomorrow we've got Clean Air Night, which is an educational campaign from Action for Cleaner Air that we're proud to be a part of. Clean Air Night focuses on wood burners, which are bad for your wallet, bad for our planet and bad for our air. As we heard in public forum today, domestic burning is the single biggest cause of small particle air pollution in the UK. Burning wood accounts for 75% of these emissions. More than twice as many people burning wood in the UK live in cities and towns. Parliamentary research has shown that domestic combustion in the UK produces more particle pollution than the exhaust of all road traffic. And most people who burn wood are in more affluent households. Only 8% of people burning wood have no alternative heating source, and that's important during the national cost of living crisis. But a report prepared for DEFRA in 2020 found that the largest group of people burning wood were doing so for aesthetic reasons. Burning wood is a lifestyle choice. I'm sure that there'll been a fair few otherwise well-intentioned environmentalists who have been lighting up their wood burners, particularly during the recent cold snap, and in so doing, accelerating deforestation, choking out air pollution, and contributing more to climate change and to tackling it. And we all pay the price for that. So over the last 10 years, this type of pollution caused by domestic burning has more than doubled, while pollution from industry and transport has fallen. Burning wood is always more expensive than heating by gas, boiler or heat pump, by almost 50% more, and also releases more carbon dioxide than oil or gas. So this campaign is about education, learning not burning, but also comes at a time when the council has strengthened powers to enforce smoke control with fines of up to £300. So just like the CAS, to link it back, this is going to be a multi-year effort to encourage behaviour change and something the council's working to accomplish.
Thanks, Marley. Does anyone else want to comment? Ellie?
Yeah, I just really want to welcome it. It's a really great report, and it shows that the first year has been a resounding success. When it comes to health, nitrogen dioxide is linked to many serious diseases, lung cancer, stroke, heart disease, and with outdoor pollution causing 1 in 10 cases of lung cancer in the UK, this is a really great achievement, and there'll be many campaigning groups, such as the ones in the gallery, and also ones like Mums for Lungs, who will really welcome this and see the benefits for themselves and for their children, the air that they breathe day to day. And also, I think it's good to acknowledge, that this supports our health services, the NHS. This reduces their pressures on them. And if we don't clean our air, people continue to get ill. And so it is really essential for the climate and for people's health as well. Thank you. Really welcome it.
Thanks, Ellie. Okay, thank you all for your comments. I'll now take the decision. Don will now take the decision, which will be displayed on the screen.
Thanks, Greg. I'd also like to thank the officers who worked so hard. Some of them lived this for a couple of years. But it's been a tremendous success, and I enjoyed being part of the project board as well. We had a good time together, and I feel we've done something really valuable for the city, and we will take this on in one form or another, and that clean air will remain, and it will get cleaner. Maybe not through CAS, but through other means. That's certainly something I will be keen to be involved in the future. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thanks, Don. Agenda item 13, application of Bristol Clean Air Zone net proceeds. I will introduce this one. Following on from the previous item, it is important to reiterate that the Clean Air Zone is only about clean air. After DFT's £2 in every £9 charge, and our own staff and operating costs are taken into account, and after funds are added to reserve to cover the decommissioning of the CAS when the time comes, the net proceeds are set out in this report. These net proceeds, like those for the 6 other clean air zones around the country and the ULEZ in London, come at what continues to be a difficult time for local government. Almost a decade and a half of national austerity has seen councils pushed to the brink. Birmingham and Nottingham, our fellow core cities, have issued Section 114 leases, and 1/5 of other council leaders think that they won't be far behind. As a responsible administration, we are proud to have done this in every year of our time in office. The budget papers at this meeting set out the scale of the challenge and how we will continue to balance Bristol's books. This paper sets out our allocation strategy for the estimated net proceeds from the CAS, which will fund the operation of the CAS, help even more people to travel via active travel and public transport, match fund further transport improvements, including for bus services and infrastructure through the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement, improve and maintain the transport infrastructure that we all use and need, enable local and neighbourhood transport schemes. This programme of investment will further help improve air quality in our city. So now on to public forum statements and questions. We've received one public forum statement, which was from Ian Quaife, Bristol Older People's Forum. I don't see it here. No. Turning to questions, there were 3 public forum questions submitted between 2 people. The first was from David Redgewell. David, please ask your first question.
So our first question is about the money raised, and we need to actually make sure that goes back into sustainable and free public transport. We need to actually get people out of their cars, so we clean up the city's air and continue to do so. So my question there is, what level of money will go across to the Western England Rural Combined Authority, which is the Regional Transport Authority, to improve the city's bus and integrated transport network?
Yeah, thanks. So funding for the transport levy is based on current contributions, but with an additional 4.71 million for supported services from 2025, which represents a 15% increase in the contribution. Communities that have cut off access to services, employment and learning opportunities are being held back. We're in continuous discussions with the Combined Authority about bus services in the city, including how services can be restored and improved.
So my supplementary, Deputy Mayor, is since the meeting I attended of the scrutiny, the Department for Transport and Mark Harper intervened and has now told us to rewrite our bus service improvement plan with North Somerset Council and to resubmit our plan by the 12th of June. Therefore, my question is, what can we do to improve public transport and buses as part of that plan, rather than waiting, as the officers wish to do, for one more financial year?
Thanks, David. I think I'll probably pass that to Don.
Well, obviously, the duty of rewriting BSIP will be, their plan will be with WECA. I do meet with WECA and I do make it clear to them there are a number of missing bus services in this city for which we feel that we have already contributed, and that as one of the constituent unitary authorities, when we set up WECA, we were very pleased to see that between us we'd received a large amount of BSIP money, and we would look forward to that money supplying some of these missing services. It's already been mentioned in this meeting, and we would rather not pay a second time for what we feel what is our due as a city.
Thank you, Don. David, I think you have a second question.
Yeah, so my second question really is about health measures. Keep in mind, everybody, this is not about raising money for transport measures. It's about saving lives, clean air quality, keeping people out of the BRI and Southern Hospital and the way Christine Wood wishes to all do so. So therefore, I wish to understand what level of money is going to go forward into walking and cycling and improving accessible travel across the city region, so people have choices from places like South Bristol and the private estates, and I mentioned North Western and South Mead and all of that, and I'm pleased in making sure they have good access to the city centre as an alternative to using a private car.
Yeah, thanks, David. So 25 million of the net proceeds are planned for investment that will enhance walking and cycling in the city, including match funding for the City Regional Sustainable Transport Settlement, which will unlock a hopefully £190 million capital investment. All of the funding is proposed to support bus walking and cycling in the city, but there are no plans to apply the net proceeds towards rail projects, which are funded by the Combined Authority and Network Rail.
On the issue of walking and cycling, are there going to be some proposals put forward by the West England Rural Combined Authority to North Somerset to make sure that we actually provide those alternative routes to the private car, so we continue to reduce the air quality and save lives in the city centre?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not privy to these conversations, Don, I presume you would be.
Well, our guiding document as a combined authority is the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. WECA are now developing Joint Local Transport Plan 5, I believe, which we hope will be very, very ambitious. And meanwhile, we continue as the Highways Authority to construct and reconstruct walking and cycling facilities like the many bridges we're currently working on.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, our next question is from Dan Ackroyd. Dan, please ask your question.
Why is there a proposal to spend money on items that were not listed in the Bristol Clean Air Zone charging order or as specified in the Transport Act 2000?
Thanks, Dan. The proposal is to apply the net proceeds on items within the 2022 order and in accordance with the Transport Act 2000, having regard for local transport policies in the form of the Joint Local Transport Plan. The detailed programme has been prepared because the order describes the outcomes and provides the high-level objectives for the use of the net proceeds, but in sufficient detail to support formal decision-making about budgets. All of the proposals within the detailed programme intend to support and incentivise walking, cycling and public transport in the city and are legitimate applications of net proceeds. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes. How do you expect me to trust that answer when I can see how many odd legal decisions are being made by this council?
I mean, yeah, I don't know that there's a direct answer to that question. I mean, you have an opportunity to vote in the next election, I would say. If you don't believe that the things that we say and do are the things that we say and do, then that's your decision. I believe that we do what we think is right, weighing up many complicated factors and trying to make use of options of them. Thank you. That ends the public forum. Do any cabinet members want to comment? I will now take decisions which will be displayed on screen. In terms of the decisions to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 14, Residence Parking Scheme Policy Review. I will ask Councillor Don Alexander to introduce this one.
Sorry for the delay. The aim of this paper is to bring residence parking schemes into review, supporting the development of policies for future consideration, bringing them up to date after over a decade of remaining largely unchanged without any review. RPZs have proved to be a largely failed attempt at managing our city's limited parking space. They do not meet the transport challenges facing a modern city like Bristol. In reality, they may have the effect of encouraging more short local trips. This is because residents are more willing to make a short journey by car that they might not make if parking is difficult to find. This administration has instead focused on reliable transport options for Bristolians, creating effective, sustainable transport options, improving Bristol's air quality and better managing our crowded streets and congestion. We are reducing the attractiveness of short trips by car through treatments such as modal filters, through our 2 livable neighbourhood pilots co-designed with local residents. We have successfully pedestrianised the old city of Cotton Hill, created brilliant new segregated cycle paths on key travel routes, delivered Portway Park and Ride, Bristol's first new railway station in almost a century, with work well underway now on Ashley Down Station. The proposals that the paper will set out include consideration of further development of RPZ policies for the future, including replacement of visitors' permits with a fairer pay and display system, immediate reduction in business permits in the Clifton Village area of 10% for those businesses who currently have over 7 customer permits or more, removal of third vehicle permits, and increasing the cost of a first permit from £56 to £178. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. On to public forum statements and questions. On this report, we've received 4 public forum statements. The first is from Catherine Kane. Catherine, are you here? No? Okay. The second statement is from Isadora Holliard Early. I apologise if I mispronounced it. We have 1 minute. Thank you.
Hello, Isadora Holliard, but they say Holter. Okay. So, my problem is I'm living in the 3 streets from here, so in Gretchen Street, in a flat which is converted from offices to a flat. And this is the reason why I cannot even apply for a parking permit, because of the clause which is in application, which is put there maybe 20 years ago. So I think this is a good opportunity to rethink the situation now. Just to be aware what is the clause. So they say that residential properties which planning consent for new developments and changes to properties were approved or granted after 13th of October 2005 does not have the possibility to get a parking permit. So I just want to point that Greyjoy Street is becoming more and more residential. So there are only 2 big office buildings who have the parking space for their own. And there's plenty of parking space, and I cannot even apply. So my proposition is to maybe remove this change in clause, or what is also, I think, much more fair, to redraw the borders of the residence parking scheme and add Greyjoy Street and maybe even Charles Street or other residential streets which are very near to the nearest residential parking scheme, which is Cliftonwood and Frogos. That's all from me.
Thank you, Isadora. Next up, we have a statement from Paul Booley. Paul, are you here? No? Okay, next is from Councillor Martin Theodore. Martin, I see you are here.
Thanks very much. I was hoping there would be some details about the policy review of parking that was first announced in 2019. The officers gave a very detailed list of how parking would be reviewed, but nothing has been seen since then. It's been 8 years that these schemes have been left in place after the Mayor reviewed them all and didn't make any major changes to any of them, or make any fee revisions over those 8 years. Now, about 8 weeks before he leaves into the political process for the next election, we've had 2 reports in a few weeks. The policy confusion is worrying me, the lack of coherence, the lack of context around parking, and most of all, the lack of evidence. No new schemes have been allowed. Half my ward has parking managed, and you're proposing to change that. Half has no parking management and is chaotic. You're not proposing to give any solutions to that. Alone among comparable authorities, the Mayor here doesn't think low traffic neighbourhoods or livable neighbourhoods should actually have parking managed in them. So that's a bit of a problem for Bristol, I think. The original self-funding nature of the scheme is now being abandoned. I think you need to be clear about that and explain that the funding can or will or should go to the alternatives, because most of the issues in this report are not actually going to be pursued. There are things that might happen, could happen, may be done. You've got a few very specifics, and so there doesn't appear to be...
That's more than a minute now, Martin.
Okay, thank you. So I hope you will actually start putting together a coherent parking policy. Thank you.
Thank you, and apologies, I seem to have missed a statement. Philippa Walker, are you here? Yes, apologies, Philippa.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I sent it in by email, so I guess I'll just read the email. So it's about the central parking zone around Portland Square. So I'm a resident of Portland Square, and along with some other residents, we'd like to make a statement that we would like the St Paul's residential parking permit scheme to include residents of Portland Square and neighbouring streets currently in the central parking zone and outside the clean air zone. At the moment, you can't apply for a parking permit, so it's pretty similar to yours. You can't apply for a parking permit if you have no allocated parking space. And also you cannot apply for any visitors permits at all. So that means that if you have any visitors, the first question they're asked is where can they park, and they all have to pay on the meter. That's including workers or anybody else coming to visit you, family from away. They all have to either pay on the parking meter or park very far away. So that's my statement.
Thank you, Philippa. Apologies for missing you earlier. We now have 3 public forum questions submitted between 2 people. The first is from Suzanne Audrey, who is not here. The next are from Councillor Fodor. Martin, do you want to the first question?
Yeah, thank you. 2 questions. Firstly, please can the evidence for the outcomes that car use will be replaced by use of lower impact travel alternatives following the proposed permit increase charges be provided? So what is the evidence? And shall I read the second now? So please can the evidence for car dependency reduction through not providing parking management schemes on streets just outside residents' parking areas, where the charges are going to be raised in the areas and nothing is provided in the streets just outside. Is there any assessment of the effect of the RPS schemes on streets just outside the boundary? Could you provide that? Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. Don?
Thanks. That's not a central argument of our approach, and we hope that some of the money that proceeds from this will be able to give us some space in terms of obviously resource to develop parking policy strategy for the city, which is something we really struggle to find the people to do. We're trying to make active travel journeys and public transport use more appealing through reallocation of road space. And the paper says, where applicable, there will be reallocation of highway space to sustainable modes of travel and sustainable urban drainage systems sites to mitigate the encouragement of short car journeys being made by permit holders due to the likely availability of parking space upon return. Increases in parking permit charges are more likely to bring them in line with the increased value of parking spaces in the city centre and to recapture the loss of third car permits. The point is that this is public space and we're currently renting it out for £56 a year. £56 a year is a very small amount of money when one talks about in terms of the opportunity loss. The opportunity loss for cycle hangers, the opportunity loss for sustainable drainage, incredibly important because a lot of that water that goes into the sewers and then onto our rivers, unfortunately, which has become a national scandal, is water from the streets. We need more drainage there. Opportunity for bike hangers, for other, even for cycling infrastructure itself, because that space, so often in transport projects, that space is taken up with parking spaces. And one of the big challenges, how do we speak to those people who always park their car there and ask them and tell them, look, really we'd like that for a bus lane, or really we'd like that for a good segregated cycle lane. What I'm saying is £56 isn't enough for that. And actually, when it comes to the whole city, why don't we think more ambitiously? Why don't we talk about street space as a resource for all of us, not just for those who have cars or use cars? Yes, many people do use cars quite legitimately, have no problem with that, but many people don't. They want to cycle, they want to walk, and they want to socialise in the streets, and they want to be able to park their bikes, and the planet desperately needs for us to get rid of some of this tarmac, replace it with soil, trees, etc., just to make it work for us all. So why have you got this kind of fetish about turning it into a big car park right across the city? Your party has.
Thanks. Go on, Martin.
Dr. Mayor, I actually asked if there was any evidence for the changes that are being proposed, and I haven't been given any. I've just
what sort of
lecture about things that might be right.
Your evidence, your proof of a negative, do you, that
I asked for evidence for the 2 things that are in the questions. I'm just hoping you would answer those questions.
I find the questions very, very confusing, in all honesty. If you're asking for evidence that people who have to pay more to rent a piece of public space to park their car on are more likely to think about not having a car, then I would say nobody's going to fund that kind of academic research because it's just plain obvious that some people will decide that, and then that space will be available then for a tree or for some sustainable drainage or for a bike hanger, which is the kind of things that our party wants.
Sorry. The point is there's quite a lot of evidence on the Travel West website. We've paid a public health researcher to compile it, but I don't see any of it cited here. to describe how modal shift will be
Do
done.
you have a supplementary question? Is this a supplementary question or?
Yeah. Well, what guarantees will be given that in areas outside the parking management schemes there will be any investment in all of these alternatives, or to manage the parking in those areas that isn't managed at the moment? Because I don't think you're offering any guarantees to anyone.
Well, outside, well, there is the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood, for instance, is one example.
You've missed the point of what I put in my question and my statement. There are areas just outside parking schemes where it's not managed, there aren't charges, there aren't permits.
Well, that's isn't that exactly the problem with REZ? There's always an area just outside, but they're generally the poor areas, so you're not that bothered.
That's not true. I've just asked you if you can offer anything.
What's...
Okay, let's leave that. Thank you. We can, as you say, there's evidence on the Travel website which we can back and forth about. I'm not sure we can get any further on that discussion.
I'm just disappointed I didn't get answers to the two questions. And you know, I've even referred to the actual observable effect of car clubs that reduce car ownership, but that wasn't mentioned as something that will be investigated.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Martin. So, do any Cabinet members wish to comment? No? Okay, in which case I'm back to Don. Take decision, which I support, and now be displayed on the screen.
Mr. Chairman, I wrote an email in and my name wasn't on the list. May I have a minute?
I'm afraid we wouldn't have received it on time in order to
I
make
sent
the
it last Wednesday.
Okay, so you have a 1 minute statement, is that, you made a statement?
If I may, yes.
Yes, go on, for one minute, yeah.
Thank you very much. Can I have that? Thank you very much. I live about 50 metres away from the Edinburgh Hotel. In your report, you talk about the unique nature of Clifton Village. I would like to make a statement that currently the system doesn't work for anybody very well, insofar as the hotel has 40 visitor permits, which it sells to its customers, and those permits are used in the residence area, not in the metered area next to the hotel. And so very often, residents cannot park because there are hotel visitors with hotel permits in our residence area. We've raised this several times and it's not been addressed. The other point is that Sundays are treated very differently insofar as anyone can park anywhere. Now, many parts of Bristol, Sundays are quieter than the other 6 days of the week. Clifton, it's the busiest day of the week. And anyone can park anywhere around us. And very often on a Sunday, if anyone goes out anywhere, we're parking 300 yards away when we get home. And I'd just like those 2 points, particularly the hotel and the Sundays, to be addressed if possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your statement. It's been noted. So, thank you, Don. I'll hand over to you now to take decision, which I support, and when I be displayed on the screen.
My name's Bob Reeves, if you needed it, by the way. I'm not sure you did.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are aware of that problem, and actually there is a point in the report where we do address the specific situation of Clifton and some of those permits. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thanks, Don. On to agenda item 15, which is Bristol Avon Flood Strategy. I will ask Councillor Nickleby to introduce this report.
Thanks, Craig. Just put everything together. So we're here today to submit and hopefully commend the outline business case for the River Avon Flood Strategy. It's a major milestone in the development of this significant project for the city's future resilience, and I'm commending this report to be submitted to the Environment Agency for scrutiny. Since completing the strategic outline case in March 2021, there's been a huge amount of work from the teams across the council relevant to this work, focusing on refining and updating the existing technical information, working with the Environment Agency and making the case for the economic, technical, social and sustainability outcomes that the city will benefit from as a result of this significant capital investment. There's been a huge amount of technical work behind the scenes in terms of hydraulic modelling, geotechnical assessments, environmental appraisals, economic assessments, which I'll come back to in a minute, and understanding the cost-benefit analysis of this intervention. The headline here is that the outline business case demonstrates an even stronger business case for investment from central government flood defence grant and aid towards the delivery of this scheme. Today, as we're here today, we're in a much stronger position with such a greater degree of confidence in the deliverability of this scheme from a cost perspective, having achieved a robust funding mix, which I'll come on to. There's still a long way to go, and I think in the next administration, as we move forward with a detailed business case for the flood risk, you'll see much more activity in terms of the planning stages of this project as we try and secure consents to deliver the proposals. Specific flood defence interventions will become very real very quickly as we go through that consultation and public engagement, and individual interventions come forward for planning consent. As such, we've embedded the project within the draft local plan, and it's just a moment here to reflect on the speed in which our city is changing and our commitment to brownfield development. We're running two processes simultaneously. We are delivering, hopefully, our successful local plan to the inspector, and we're also designing our flood defences. So an appeal to everyone who's sticking around in the next administration that it's absolutely imperative that we work alongside the regeneration teams, the investors and the developers in the city to make sure that we do avoid all regretful decision making around planning schemes, and we secure the allowances that are needed to deliver the flood defences from the private sector. If we do this well in the coming 5 years, this will be a phenomenal asset to the city, not only protecting us but also providing a green pathway through the centre of the city, providing accessible public transport. As I said, the project is embedded within the draft local plan and sets out our expectations and contributions towards the delivery of the scheme from those developers, but that will need to continued focus as we move forward. Our focus remains overall at a strategic level on protecting the existing homes of business and businesses currently at risk from flooding from the River Avon, both now and in the forward projection, and also making sure those defences work all year round, not just when the river is in flood. We know that when we design these defences, we can enhance public spaces in some of the areas of our city centre which are most deprived of green spaces, and create better access to the river, enhance our heritage and improve the transport connections. I'll pause there and look forward to the discussion. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Nicola. On this report, we have received 3 public forum statements. The first is from Ron Curtis, if anyone is here. The second is from Martin Rands, Martin's here. And the next name is from Hayden Gill. Hayden, you have 1 minute.
Just to say, obviously, a year ago, I made a statement on park permits. Thanks to Councillor Alexander for sort of taking that on board. Moving on to flood defences, I'd like to thank the absent Mayor for finally making Feeder Road safer. Half the road now floods when it rains, slowing drivers down as they give way to oncoming traffic. I'm thanking the Mayor as he flew across the world to talk about climate change. The flights made climate change worse, making rain worse, creating this traffic calming flood of Feeder Road, which really makes it safer. So, without spending a penny of council money and making climate change worse, he got stuff done. A poem to end. There is still a Mayor of Bristol, 3 months until he goes. He flew on ball, leading to worse rainfall, and Feeder Road is now one big problem. Thank you.
There were then 2 questions. The first is also from Hayden Gill.
The first question is just Councillor Beach. So obviously, we're building flood defences due to the impacts of climate change, and fossil fuel companies have impacted hugely to our climate and are basically the biggest contributors. Will Bristol honour their contribution to flooding and name the flood defences after British Petroleum or Royal Dutch Shell? This will put Bristol on the international stage, newspapers will love it, and it will definitely make it a statement for fossil fuel companies.
I mean, as the previous Cabinet Member for Climate and the current Cabinet Member for Flood Resilience and Strategic Planning, I'd like you to name it the Nicola Beach Flood Defences, but I suppose I'm going to have to wait for others in the chamber to make that decision, I'm afraid, Hayden.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question?
Go straight to question 2.
Thank you.
And then again, go back to my favourite Feeder Road. So obviously, it gets flooded regularly, even though the report says it will be flooded in a severe flood. Reported to the Council December last year and January this year, and I've been told that I have to deal with it as future works in the area. will I have to wait until these 2029 works for flooding issues to be fixed, or is there a better, faster way of getting feeder road actually usable for people?
I mean, this is a highways question rather than a strategic flood risk question, but obviously as part of my brief shared with Don, every year we see increased rainfall across the city and we see the constant challenge of highways protection. Of course, ironically, one of the challenges on Feeder Road is the number of trees and vegetation on the side of the feeder canal, so you've always got these clashes between one in a nature-rich city and also one in a city that drains well. I get casework like this all the time, Hayden. I use Feeder Road a lot myself. We'll continue to get that looked at and fixed, but you know, we see extreme storm events continuing our way. I think it's going to be a constant challenge on highways, so when Don brings papers around highways budgets and spend on things like day-to-day maintenance, just think about the Feeder Road and come and say you think it's a great idea.
Do you have a supplementary question?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is from Councillor McAllister.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I welcome the flood strategy. It's an essential piece of work. I did notice in some of the papers what looked to me to be inconsistencies in some of the tons of CO2 equivalent that will be produced or mitigated by this proposal. So I was wondering if we could get some clarification of which figures are accurate, please. And I would also like to ask if the assessments and appraisals that these figures are all based on could be made available.
Yeah, of course. So it's a good catch. I think it's fair to say, I'm not sure what your background is, Patrick, but when you're moving from kind of an outline business case to a full business case, it's kind of a constraining process that happens as you learn more about the solution and how you're going to implement it. I think the initial projection of 1.540 million tonnes of carbon was a little wild overestimation as we now start to look at constraining that plan. So the number that you can see there, 55,000 tonnes of CO2, that is in the report, is the accurate report at the point we're in now as we submit that outline business case. You will see that progress, as it'll be interesting to see how that shows up when we do our planning applications and the individual interventions come through, so I'd keep an eye on it, but that is, as the number that's there is been robustly tested and is part of this consideration is the number that you should focus on.
Thank you very much. And I was, yeah, would the assessments and appraisals be able to be made available, please?
Sorry, Patrick, say that again?
What are the process, but can the appraisals and the assessments by which we arrived at these figures be made available? This is largely for personal interest, to be honest.
I think I'm looking at John as one of the key officers. I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't have access, particularly for the, as I say, for the outline, for the full business case that's coming today. I'm more than happy to connect you with that and get you a briefing on it, it's not a problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any cabinet members want to comment? Yeah, Tom?
Just to say it's brilliant to see this piece of work come forward. It's hugely important for existing homes. Never mind the homes you also want to build and bring forward in the future, and it's hugely crucial. So I think just really pleased to see this come forward. So thank you to you and the officers who've worked very hard for a very long time to get it to this point.
Thank you, Tom. I'll now come back to Councillor Beach to take a decision, which I support, and will now be displayed on the screen.
Thanks, Craig. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Next up, agenda item 16, multi-storey car park pay on foot contract. Councillor Don Alexander, to you.
Thank you. This is a riveting one. To seek approval to tender for the installation and maintenance of new pay-on-foot equipment at Trenchard Street and West End multi-storey car parks, an estimated contract value of up to £1 million. For anyone who's not aware of what pay-on-foot equipment is, that's the entry-exit barriers, pay stations and the back-office software to manage the systems.
Thank you. Thanks, Don. Unsurprisingly, we've got no public forum statements or questions on this one. Do any cabinet members want to comment? No? In which case I'll hand back to Don to take a decision, so I support and now be displayed on the screen.
Thank you. In which case I will... I've suddenly lost my script. Apologies. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thanks, Don. On On to agenda item 17, the Mission Net Zero project delivery, Innovate Pathfinder Places Programme Phase 2. Short and snappy title. I'll ask Councillor Marley Bennett to introduce this report.
Thanks, Craig. The climate emergency calls for transformative action, not just incremental change. We felt that a mission approach was just what was needed, taking a challenge and working together on it with partners all focused on one objective. A mission approach famously put people on the moon and is increasingly being used in innovation, from tackling climate change to developing new treatments for cancer. Hence the name of this project, Mission Net Zero. And we are proud to be one of the only 2 cities in the UK involved in this EU funding programme. This project has secured funding from Innovate UK to test innovative new approaches, and collaboration is key to climate action and one of the key principles of our One City climate strategy. The project represents a collaboration within Bristol, but also with cities and towns across the UK and Europe. And it's been built on the work that the City Council and partners have done over recent years. So I'd like to put on record my thanks for the officers involved in putting this bid, and also for Councillor Kai Judd, who's been key to many of these initiatives and to the development of the current bid to Innovate UK. This project will work with 3 communities to test an approach of putting community priorities at the heart of climate change action. It will work with businesses in the Bristol area to help them grow, create new, greener jobs, and provide training which will help more people in Bristol benefit from climate action. It will work with investors, public and private, to accelerate investment in projects in Bristol tackling climate change, and will work with our neighbouring councils and the combined authority to maximise the generation and use of clean energy in Bristol and across the whole of the west of England. This project comes on top of existing initiatives such as the Community Climate Action Project run by Bristol Green Capital Partnership and the 1.5 million Bristol City Leap Community Energy Fund that is funding community-led projects through a combination of grants and loans. The project consortium will be starting work next week to deliver the project, and one of the first steps with which our partners, the Centre for Sustainable Energy, will be doing is to share information about the project with communities around the city and inviting them to participate. Later on in this meeting, I look forward to introducing the Just Transition paper. This project is an excellent example of putting the principles of the Just Transition into practice.
Great, thanks, Marley. On this report, we've received no public forum statements or questions. Do any Cabinet members want to comment? Kai.
Yeah, thanks, Marley. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I just wanted to also thank the officers for their hard work on this. The team led by Alex Mitchell has been really successful this year in gaining grant funding in very competitive bids. So I think there was more than about 10 bidders for this particular pot of money. In the end, it was 2 bids that won, and we were part of that. And this is on top of the money that we were successfully granted by the EU, which is quite amazing when you given that we're not a member anymore, and we're still winning bids. And I think the good thing about this is what it's looking to do is the groundwork to deliver more investment. So the work with WECA is about looking across the region about where potential projects could go, like wind turbines, solar panels, things like that across the west of England. But also with the community climate investment plans that hopefully will come out of this process. I think Lawrence Weston was a good example where you had an idea from a community that managed to attract investment, and now they've got the largest wind turbine in England. They're generating money for that community. It's about trying to expand that approach across the communities that have carried out those plans, and getting some of the ideas that they have investment ready, so they can deliver on the opportunities that are out there. And also there's a focus on the supply chain and skills development, so we can really take advantage of the investment that will come, and there's a lot of investment coming to Bristol, and making sure local people benefit from the new jobs that are coming down the line.
Thanks, Kai. Any other Cabinet members want to comment? No, in which case I'll hand back to you, Marley, to take a decision, which I support, and I'm able to play on the screen.
Thanks, Craig. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 18, Cemetery and Crematorium Capital Programme, South Bristol Cemetery Expansion. I will ask Councillor Andy King to introduce this report.
Thank you. This paper brings forward the capital investment of 2.4 million needed to deliver the South Bristol Cemetery expansion, which was recently approved in November of last year at Development Committee B. The Council has a responsibility to provide sufficient burial provision in the city, and these proposals will ensure we have enough plots for the next 25 to 30 years. These plans have been developed with stakeholders from equalities groups to ensure that we meet the cultural and religious needs of our diverse communities. This also includes new provision for baby burials, and will also work to ensure the quality of the Muslim burial area is brought up to a high standard. South Bristol Cemetery is the only cemetery in Bristol which still has the capacity to accept new burials. It is council-owned land, and since the 60s it was designated long-term for this purpose. The expansion will take place in 2 phases in order to ensure the cattle grazing from Yew Tree Farm can continue to do so with minimal disruption, with a net reduction of just 4% of the grazing space in the first phase of development. As part of the Collaters Brook SNCI, extensive ecological surveys have been conducted to assess the status of the SNCI, and opportunities to enhance important elements have been identified. For example, species-rich grassland restoration by managing the scrub encroachment. No development work of significance will take place until the 30-year Land Environmental Management Plan has been completed as per the planning application stipulation, which will be done this spring, and this will involve stakeholder engagement, as has every stage of this process. I want to acknowledge the strong feelings and opinions expressed about this expansion, which there always is when there are competing priorities for land use, and which is understandable when considerable change is afoot. Sustainable food production continues to be a priority for this administration, clearly demonstrable in the huge amount of collaborative work we've done in this area. However, like DCB, I am satisfied that the Council has been and continues to work hard to accommodate the needs of the farm and of the SNCI, whilst ensuring we fulfil our responsibilities with regards to burial provision. And I hope that going forward, all will engage constructively to ensure we meet the needs of this multifunctioning and very special space. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. On to public forum statements and questions. We have 2 public forum statements. The first is from Mark Ashdown. I don't think Mark is here now. The second is from Catherine Withers. Is not here? Turning to questions, there were 2 public forum questions submitted, and they're both from Councillor Annie Stafford Townsend, who is here.
Hello.
Welcome. Please ask your first question.
Thank you very much, Craig. Okay, so I've had a lot of contact from the Muslim community concerned about graves in the Muslim plot and the flooding that is happening there. There have been some work to prevent the flooding, some pipe work have been put in, but I'm told that that drainage has failed and it's not achieving what it was set out to do. So I was just wondering what work could be carried out at the cemetery to prevent that from being an ongoing issue.
Thank you. Thanks for your interest in this. So there's two problems with the Muslim burial area, and I think it's important to say that there's been a long-standing Muslim burial group who we've been consulting with and continue to work quite closely with, and we've also had representations from most of Bristol's mosques up there to talk to about the issue as well. So yeah, there are significant drainage issues at the site. At the start of 2023, or 2024 now, start of 2023, drainage works were carried out and completed, which have been effective in managing the surface water, but however the grave subsidence has meant surface water inevitably is collected in the lower areas of depressions where above the graves, and the graves have been collapsing due to the degradation of the timber that's used. But since then, since August of last year, there's now been a different stipulation in the materials and the constructive elements that are used to make new graves, so that shouldn't be an issue for any future grave collapsing. During the rest of 2024, we will complete the scheme of burial remediation and return the Muslim burial area to the same standard as the rest of the site. So yeah, the timetable of which will be weather dependent, and also, as it's quite a sensitive issue, it'll be about discussing that with the families to make sure that they're comfortable and happy with the work that needs to be done, and just making sure we take them with us, and that they're very much using the Muslim burial group as a way to consult those people as well, just to make sure it's done with everyone's well-being in mind.
That's great, thank you very much. Yes, well, I've been informed that the pipe work that's been put in has become blocked already, so I don't know if that's something that you're aware of. Something to chase up if you're not quite sure. I was just wondering why this particular issue wasn't included in the strategy documents for the crematorium or in the papers for this cabinet meeting?
It is referenced in the paper for the cabinet meeting. It talks about that as part of the capital money that this paper will bring through. That work will be done, that's how it's going to get financed. So it is referenced in the paper.
Good. So my second question is the council footing the bill for this? So you're saying, presumably, that you are throughout this?
Yeah, the council will be footing the entire bill for this, making sure that that work's done and done well this year. And regardless of when this work's done, we'd still run out of space for Muslim burials, so it's an issue that we need to take very seriously, and that's why South Bristol expansion needs new additional plots. And you know, it's a view that I hope that other members appreciate and understand, and that's one of the key reasons we need to do the expansion.
Thank you. Yeah, my concern right now is the existing burial plots, but I'm sure that the community will be very relieved by your answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any cabinet members wish to comment? No? Okay, in which case I'll hand back to Ellie to take the decision which I support and now displayed on the screen.
Just for a quick point, you know, there was a statement to Development Committee that asked for this to be approved because it would provide more provision for Muslim burials. So that is it. It's not just about now, it's about the future, and that's what this paper seeks to look to. But in terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you, Ellie. On to agenda item 19, the leaseholder of residential property insurance for 2024-25. Exciting title, that's obviously from me. The report seeks to procure and award insurance arrangements for our leaseholder and right to buy scheme, almost 2,000 flats and houses for a year and a new tender in the year after. The overall cost of insurance cover has increased because of property valuations, change in valuation approach, and more properties added to the portfolio in the previous insurance period. The most recent valuation indicating an upward movement, increasing the valuation from 280 to 480 million. It is anticipated that, given the current trends, insurance premiums are likely to increase further. The market for this insurance type is currently challenging, with very few suppliers providing this insurance cover currently. Due to the withdrawal of our principal supplier, Zurich, from residential leaseholder market, 2023, the market options have been limited, so interim arrangements have been pursued to enable cover. We anticipate that the market will improve so that we can conduct a full tender in 2026. On this report, we've received no public forum statements or questions. Any cabinet members want to comment? No? Okay. In which case, I will now take the decision, which will be displayed on screen. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 20, procurement of financial systems, including the Council's ledger and ancillary payment system. Put simply, the proposal involves the procurement and implementation of a new 5-year service agreement for the hosting and support of our current financial ledger and main accounting system. The ledger is a software tool for recording and reporting financial transactions and balances. A second proposal involves procuring a new contract for the Council's current payment system because the current contract expires on the 31st of the 3rd, 2024. The aim is to ensure seamless, uninterrupted use of the ledger and to have continued payment functionality in place at all times. Both these proposals will support our corporate strategy principle of good governance, helping us to be an effective development organisation by enabling responsible financial management. As ever, procurement rules and public contract regulations 2015 must be followed in relation to the procurement process for the new contract. Underlines how important it is to have a functioning back office programme to support our processes, but also expert professionals to make sure we source, procure and use these systems in the most cost-effective way. I recommend it to Cabinet today. I've had no public forum statements or questions on this one. Do any Cabinet members want to comment? No? Not on the new tender of the ledger? No? Fine. I will now take the decision which will be displayed on the screen. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 21, Housing Revenue Account Budget Proposals 2024-25. I will introduce this report. This is the ring-fence housing revenue account budget. There are significant external pressures and investment commitments affecting the 2024 budget, the medium-term financial plan and the 30-year business plan. The plan allows us to invest in our existing homes. Energy improvement of our existing homes, spend 100 million up to 2030, 2031 to get homes up to EPC standard C. New health and safety regulation, focus on damp and mould and new consumer standards and proactive regulation, increasing investment in existing homes. Spend of 258 million over the next 10 years in landlord compliance related capital and revenue programmes. In terms of new homes, we're increasing the council housing programme to 3,082 over the next 5 years to respond to the housing crisis and high level of spend on temporary accommodation. This report proposes a 7.7% increase in rent and service changes as at September CPI plus 1% in line with government rent standard. To support residents in hardship, a hardship fund of £500,000 is included in each year of the business plan. 24-25, Councillor Dove has ensured 350,000 is set aside for residents accessing the local crisis prevention fund, with the remainder set aside for other schemes. This will include a newly introduced cladding removal support scheme to support residents affected by increased energy bills resulting from the removal of EPS cladding, whilst it was replaced with an A-rated cladding system. On this report, we've had no public forum statements. We've had 3 public forum questions submitted between 2 people. The first is from Councillor Morrison. Welcome, please ask your question.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the news about the 350 set aside for residents accessing local crisis prevention. As you know, Councillor Rippington and I have been campaigning on behalf of Gilton House for them to receive some money for financial support for the delays to their repairs, as these delays have meant that they've had very cold and damp flats without insulation, driving up their heating bills, which they're very concerned about. The question is, can you please confirm that Gilton House residents will be eligible for this financial support?
Yeah, thanks, Katja. I mean, without prejudicing the criteria, we would expect Gilton House residents to be likely to be eligible for the fund. Eligibility and further guidance on accessing the fund will be made available shortly, subject to the 2024-25 budget being approved by full council.
I'm very happy to hear that, and the only thing is just that we make sure that it's done in a short space of time, because these are people that don't have access to huge savings to pay for things.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely understood. As soon as the budget's approved by full council, we'll be able to act on it. The next 2 questions are from Councillor Tim Rippington. Tim.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I welcome the £210,000 being set aside for an enhanced damp and mould task force, building on our work bringing homes up to a decent standard. Please could you provide more details on this task force and how it will work? Thanks.
Kylie, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to do this one, Tim. So in the proposal for 2023-24, we've been trialling a winter task force made up of existing staff to respond to damp and mould in residents' home, and reported primarily through the new web form. The additional £210,000 of money is going to be used to bring in more staff to deal with the issue. So this is what we're going to do. So we've got a dedicated team manager to focus on this, and 2 technical officers that will support the approach. Also, we're going to dedicate some of our in-house trades to obviously dealing and tackling the problem, including painters, plumbers and electricians. So that's what the additional £210,000 will be useful for next year.
Do you have a supplementary, Tim?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. I think there will be problems with damp and mould in Gilton House as well, as the heating issues. So will this task force be able to look into them?
Yeah, I mean, more generally, because obviously we're well aware of the issues with Gilton House, and obviously we've had statements in this chamber before from residents there. So it was an issue that we're very keen to try and resolve, and obviously we've made sure there's some money in the budget that hopefully will be used for the Gilton House residents once we've nailed down the details of how that particular scheme. But more generally, in terms of our compliance with, there's a number of, we call them the big 6, in terms of regulatory compliance, so electrical safety, fire safety, building structure, structural safety. Damp and mould is one of those big 6, so we're very much on top of that across the estate. And obviously, if there are
particular issues at Gilton House that we're not aware of. I'm sure the team are the issues, but if we're not aware of them, then let me know and I'll make sure the team deal with that, and they're more than happy to go out and inspect properties and flats where there are problems. So if there are issues that you don't know about, I'm happy to make sure that those inspections take place.
Thanks, Tim. You've got your second question, which I think is for Tom.
Yeah, I'm also welcoming the proposal to increase the pipeline of new council homes, 3,000 homes over the next 5 years. Could the Cabinet Member of Housing Delivery share more details about these plans?
Thank you, Councillor. So I'm really excited about these proposals. It's been a significant amount of work to look at what the art of possible was within the Housing Revenue and Council, a ring-fenced fund, but one which doesn't have the same constraints as the general fund around the ability to borrow, particularly when it comes to building more council homes or also acquisitions. And that's what we're going to see. So we're obviously looking to build more homes ourselves through direct delivery within the council. We're looking to acquire more units from Gorham Homes as well, at a council-owned housing company. To bring forward a more particular proposal, I'll note, it's obviously subject to planning, but Baltic Wharf proposal should come forward as a 100% council housing scheme. You know, why shouldn't council tenants be able to live in nice homes along the waterfront, as well as other areas of the city? On top of that, there is, and this has been the big change, is there's an extensive acquisitions programme in there, which is going to focus on street properties as well as other new build opportunities that might appear. And what that's going to look at, it's going to look at ex-right to buy properties, but not exclusively ex-right to buy properties. We'll look at other opportunities in the market, and we'll produce a set of criteria that will further review to look at the types of properties, because what we'll do is we'll bring in a managing agent to act as a one-stop shop to acquire those properties for us, rather than try and put further pressure on an already stretched legal department, for example. So those are some of the plans that we're looking at. And what we hope is that will, one, increase the supply of council housing. A lot of that will be for social rent, for some shared ownership to make sure things stack. But that means we can help to address the housing crisis, get more people out of temporary accommodation in what is a worsening situation for us, locally and also nationally. So, I'm really excited about sort of the extent of the plans, and we are balancing that with making sure we're investing in the existing stock as well as has been set out in the paper. So really trying to do everything that we can to give existing council tenants decent homes, make sure we can get more council homes and a council housing renaissance, which we've not seen in generations.
Thanks, Tim. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, can I just clarify that, Tom, with the right to buy properties, that we're looking to buy back some of those that have gone into the private sector, because we know that an enormous amount of ex-council housing has gone into the sort of renting sector. So we're now looking to buy some of that back.
If we can, yeah. I mean, I think it's 4 in 10 former council house properties have ended up in the private rented sector. So we're looking at opportunities, and also what we see, both me and the council have discussed this before, is you go on Rightmove and another place and you'll see ex-council properties on there. We should be getting in there to secure those properties back. We've got a housing crisis and need to increase our stock by any way we can. The acquisitions programme may take a while to scale up, so we've sort of got slightly paid back expectations in year one, it's a slightly lower number, because the other thing we are doing is creating a land acquisition fund as well for other potential opportunities that there might be to bring sites forward for council members.
Thanks, Tom. Do any other cabinet members wish to comment on this paper? Kai?
Yeah, just I've got some general comments, but in terms of that buyback of right to buy properties, yeah, I think that, if you go on Rightmove now, you'll probably see about 10 to 15 HRA properties all available for under 200 grand. Some of them are cash buyers only because they've got short leases. And we're normally, in terms of the flats, they're normally in our blocks. We're the freeholder. We're going in doing the maintenance anyway, so it kind of makes sense that we try and buy them. I think there's there's always been an ambition to do that, but it's really lacked focus. What we're doing with the budget is making sure there's proper allocated resource to go and do that in a systematic way. It's probably the cheapest form of housing we can actually buy back and bring back into use. So I was very keen on that. And the other thing with the budget here in terms of what I'm responsible for, so it's very clear focus on compliance, making sure, as I said before, with the big six. So if you look at what we're spending over 10 years, it's £258 million on all the compliance issues that we have to deal with, including the high profile one, fire safety, for example, with our sprinklers programme and fire alarms programme, which is very, and fire doors programme actually, which gets less attention. And we've also got an £83 million bathroom replacement, which I think would be welcomed by many of our tenants, because that, that's not been dealt with for years. And also with damp and mould, as I mentioned, and also making sure we get all our properties up to an EPCC standard in terms of energy efficiency by 2030. That would be challenging, because we do rely on grant funding from government to bridge the gap, but we're hoping with a change of government. We've already seen a £28 billion a year commitment from Ed Miliband. We hope to get some of that money in to deal with some of the social housing energy efficiency issues. And of course we've got this £500,000 hardship fund that can deal with many of the issues that you've brought to us today with. So yeah, really support the budget this year.
Thanks, Kai. Any other comment members want to comment? No? Okay. In which case I'll take the decision, which will now be displayed on screen. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 22, dedicated schools grant budget proposals 2024-25. I'll introduce this one. The dedicated schools grant is the ring-fenced grant from government for funding schools and services for pupils. This report outlines the 4 blocks of the DSG, the proposed use of the DSG, and how associated grants are to be applied during 2024-25. The DSG is calculated based on 4 funding blocks: the schools block, the high needs block, the central services block, and early years. The overall headline increases in the 2024-25 DSG to 28.8 million, giving a total DSG of 491.7. Schools Forum has some responsibility to determine a small number of specific budgets and the decisions on the amount of funding to distribute to schools in early year settings. The distribution mechanisms, the proposed spend on central services, and the high needs budgets are matters to be determined by the Council. The Bristol Schools Forum have been consulted on the use of the DSG and the school funding regulations limit the scope of how this funding may be used. Following consultation with schools, the Schools Forum agreed the following principles for the 2024-25 funding formula: the transfer of 0.5% of the schools block to the high needs block, 2 million top slice of schools block to create the growth fund for 2024-25, the minimum funding guarantee to be set at 0%, the lump sum to be maximised at 139,849 for both primary and secondary, and any remaining funding directed to the additional educational needs factors. Schools Forum agreed to the transfer of 0.5% of the schools block to the high needs block at its meeting in November 2023, and the funding is to be earmarked to support the demand in high needs. Please note that this is the maximum threshold, and any amount beyond 0.5% would require Secretary of State approval. We've had no public forum statements or questions on this one. Then Cabinet Member want to comment, Asha?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I was at a meeting of the Schools Forum where they had quite a lengthy discussion on this, but they were really confident and supportive of the proposals that were set out. So I commend this I commend this to the Schools Forum for the work that they did, because obviously we had quite a lengthy consultation period with them over this, and they understand the challenges and went ahead and supported our proposals. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Asha, anyone else want to comment? In which case I'll take the decision, which will now be displayed on the screen. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 2024-25 budget recommendations and treasury management strategy. For 8 years running, we have tabled a balanced budget. Meeting that challenge should not be underestimated, and while we've seen other authorities declare bankruptcy and seek support, We've been able to balance our budget whilst keeping open all our libraries, all our children's centres and deliver on our promises to the city. The budget report builds on the medium-term financial plan and capital strategy as approved at the full council on the 31st of October 23. It incorporates decisions relating to the revenue for the 5-year time frame 24-25 to 28-29 and to capital for the 10-year time frame 24-25 through to 2033-34. It also sets out the Treasury Management Strategy. Where appropriate, public consultation and equality impact assessments have been undertaken in relation to the budget proposals, considering the feedback from that process has been taken into account in making these final proposals. This report puts forward a general fund net revenue budget for 24-25 of £525.4 million. Headline recommendations include a 4.99% increase in council tax for 24-25, of which 2% is for the adult social care precept. After the application of council tax, additional savings of 24 million in 24-25, rising to 25.7 million by the close of 28-29, are proposed, and in order to smooth the most significant impact of the business rate review in 2026, 27 and 27-28, the temporary support of one-off council reserves is also planned. These planning assumptions combine to deliver an annual balanced position across the 5-year budget timeframe. Public Health Grant is a ring-fenced account intended for use on public health functions. It operates on a principle of self-funding so that it seeks to contain additional costs and any new burdens. Its indicative allocation for 24-25 is expected to be 36.2 million. The capital programme budget for 24-25 to 2033-34 covers the general fund and the HRA. The total combined budget for the 10-year timeframe is 2.7 million. The proposed Treasury Management Strategy incorporates the minimum revenue policy and prudential indicators and limits. Finally, this report also includes a request for supplementary estimate for the Children and Education Directorate following its Q3 Period 8 forecasting year of 18.5 million per share. So, Cabinet is asked to recommend to full council for approval the council tax increase of 4.99%, including 2% for social care, noting the precepts of the Police and Crime Commissioner for Avon and Somerset and the Avon Fire Authority. The changes to council tax for empty homes and for second homes. The General Fund 5-year net revenue budget, which is 525.4 million, and expenditure allocations as set out in Appendix 1. The capital programme for 24-25 through to 2033-34. The strategic community infrastructure levy allocations, the Treasury Management Strategy, the strategy for flexible use of capital receipts, and finally the children education supplementary estimates. On this report, we've received one public forum statement, which is from Bristol Disability Equalities Forum. David Rajwell. David, you have 1 minute.
Well, let's be clear what we are. We're an equalities forum, and we believe we deal with some of the most poorest and distressed people in the city and county of Bristol and the city region. So I think it's tonight I just want to raise the point again about we can't have communities, and if they smashed the bell here tonight, they were at Blackburn yesterday at the scrutiny on Monday, raising the point about having no public bus services in places like Stapleton, in places like Hillfield, in places like parts of Brislington, St Anne's. The working class suburbs of this city have no public bus services. This authority and Labour-led, Labour-controlled West Midlands Mirror Combined Authority have a duty to look at providing those services. Unfortunately, the Mayor, who I support, Dan Norris, does not have precepting powers, so he's very reliant on the three unitary authorities, plus North Somerset, to pass a transport levy to that authority. That is fixed at the moment at about £10 million. It's not enough to fund those services or put them back, even with working with research, which I agree with Councillor Don Alexander we should do. So again, I'm going to appeal to you tonight on behalf of the most poorest communities in this city, the people who can't afford taxis, who can't afford to go and get food shopping, who really are pushing you to look at what we do with that CAS money and provide some of it to the Metro there so we can restore public bus services so we can move around the city.
Whatever a minute now, David.
My final point was this, and I will say, we've got revenue coming in from bus shelters and maintenance, but Deputy Mayor, they are not maintaining, cleaning or repairing the stops and the shelters and making community safety issues without lighting. And I ask that issue to be looked at during the Becker and Bristol. But I do ask the bus service to be looked at.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you. We also have two public forum questions. They were from Councillor Steve Pearce.
Great, Councillor Pearce is unwell, unfortunately, but I can read them out if that's
We'll provide written responses, it's fine, thank you. Do any cabinet members want to comment? Tom?
Thank you, and first my thanks to you and also to the finance team who do an incredible amount of work to pull this together every year, and it's no easy task. I was at an emergency meeting of council leaders earlier today, sort of focused on homelessness and temporary accommodation pressure, and I know they're not obviously the only budgetary pressures I'm sure the cabinet members know inside out that they've had to contend with. And I think, you know, it's a testament to this council that we are managing to set a 5-year budget. It's not without its risks, it's not without its challenges. There are councils all over the country either serving Section 114 notices or on the verge, and they are councils run by all political persuasions of administration. This isn't an issue specific to one kind of political party type of local government authority. What we do have in common is we've got a national Tory government which is presiding over an increasing number of local authorities on the verge of going bust, and a current gap of £4 billion nationally in local government finance that must be addressed if we're really going to be able to grip some of these issues. I just find it fascinating that when we talk about local housing allowance rate, which are going back up to 30th percentile from April, really welcomed, but it's one-off. Temporary accommodation and what the subsidy loss we can recover as a council is frozen at 2011 rates, which is just obscene, and it means, you know, last year we lost over £11 million in subsidy loss. That is funding, you know, that could be going to other services that, you know, could be bolstered our library service or other provisions. So, you know, it's a hugely challenging time for us, and hopefully local government will get a fairer funding settlement than the one that's currently on the table.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the fact that, you know, the continuing pressures that we are facing in children and education, and go back to the point I was making, being at the mercy of the market, we are seeing the level of need of children in care rise exponentially, and we are doing everything we possibly can to increase the number of kind of foster carers, and hence why the Loch Lees development is so important, but we're not necessarily going to build our way out of this, and I think Bristol isn't alone in this situation. So, yeah, how we manage that, we have to look to government, and obviously the conversations that are being had with other local authorities across the country on how we avoid. I'm testament to the finance team, to the senior leadership team, to your leadership on bringing us to a point where we can present a balanced budget, but it's no mean feat. And I want to give a special shout out to our Section 141 officer, and I know we're not allowed to, but I'm going to name her, Denise Murray. She has been stellar over the last 7 years, helping us steer and navigate our finances here in the organisation.
Yeah, thanks. Sharon, anyone else want to comment? I mean, 70% of the council's budget now goes on demand-led services, which you take out on the 10% of capital financing. That leaves 20% of our budget to spend on everything that the city thinks the council does beyond delivering social care. Really. And that is, you know, it was probably 60% 14 years ago. So it's huge. People can't underestimate how phenomenal scale that challenge is for councils to continue to deliver libraries, parks, streetlights, burial plots, everything that people expect from the council, bin collection across the city, whilst using such a significant amount of funding, and what that means for the council. And like you, massive thanks to Denise for kind of balancing the books with this time.
I would also add as well, I think for me, and it's always a conversation that, you know, myself and Helen had, when it comes to adult and children's services, no one's ever sitting in the gallery, no one's ever asking any questions, no one is ever trying to help us find a solution. Everybody wants to kind of, you know, throw dirt in our direction, but we're not, you know, we can't stop the need. If a child is presented, we have to provide placement support, whatever that costs. And that costs seeing us with an £18 million overspend. And we have to manage that. And I know that there are some eye-watering figures in other local authorities. So, you know, as I said, I'm grateful that our finance team has been able to help us balance the books and not go off piste like some other local authorities in the country.
Yeah, thanks, Asha. Helen?
Well, just to add to what Asha said, I mean, what we've seen over the time that I've had this portfolio is that there's been an increase in the proportion of the council's spend that's gone on adults, and there's obviously been an increase as well in the number of people that we serve, although in fact the number of people that we serve are per head, we're able to reduce that figure by the transformation work that we've done, and to thank again the finance team and the support that we've had for the transformation programme. I think sometimes in the past people have been a bit sceptical about what's been delivered through previous transformation programmes, but this one we get the feeling that it's really corporately owned, and we're working together, housing as well, obviously with children's services for those transition from children's services to adult services. And you know, we recognise that that's been hard decisions in some of the other departments, and we don't want to reduce to just being a children's and statutory services provider, because we recognise that work in communities, work in housing, as I've said, work in transport, all of those things are what keep people well in their own communities, and that's what we want. So it's been a real hard slog, but we do appreciate the support we've had across the piece this time.
I mean, every graph effectively plots a point at which social care costs outstrip council budgets entirely, and there is no capacity left to deal with anything else. So government at some point very soon has to grasp the nettle on this, or I don't know where we go. It's an era-defining problem, and one that we're just not dealing with at the moment. There was an interesting debate on Radio 4 today actually about you know, how do we fund this problem? Is there a private sector solution? And the answer seemed to be no. There's no insurance company that's going to set up some kind of bond for your, you know, your care. So it needs to be a national insurance solution. Thank you. Does anyone else want to comment? Dawn?
Yeah, just to remind us, 7 years of keeping the council tax reduction scheme going. That's been an annual and sometimes challenging discussion, but very grateful to you, Craig, and to the Mayor, and to everyone who's contributed in the right spirit to a very difficult discussion, and certainly for the people of Whitehall come out with the right result. So thank you.
Thanks. So, after that, any more cabinet members want to comment? No? I just put on record my thanks to Denise and the finance team. Obviously Denise has been with us for the past 7 years and has really steered us through this unbelievably difficult situation that we're all in. And you look around the country and you see, you know, we are in a better position than the majority. And that is testament to the work that Denise and her team have done. In terms of the decisions we made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 24, almost as exciting as the budget, the quarterly 2 performance progress report. This report and appendices provide relevant performance measures from the business plan 23-24 as approved by Cabinet in March and as approved by CLB in March and noted by Cabinet in April 2023. Understanding whether BCC is delivering the priority outcomes for the citizens and city as outlined in the annual business plan will ensure organisational efforts can be focused on benefit realisation. 4 themes are on schedule for quarter 2, but with 3 themes now rated as behind schedule. 83% of all business plan actions are currently on track. 44% of all business plan priority measures are on or better than target, and 53% of all city outcome measures are on or better than target. I'm sure Cabinet have read this, so we're asked just to note the summary reports and overall performance progress and the measures to address performance issues to be implemented by the relevant services. We've received no public forum statements or questions on this. Do any Cabinet members want to comment? No? Okay, in which case I will now take the decision which will now be displayed on the screen. In terms of the decisions we made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 25, Corporate Risk Management Report, Quarter 3, 23-24. Risk management aims to maximise achievement of the Council's aims and objectives by reducing the risk to those achievements and maximising possible opportunities that arise. The Corporate Risk Register sets out the critical, significant and high-rated threats and opportunity risks. All other business risks reside on the service risk registers. The report identifies 1 critical, 25 high and 5 medium threat risks. The details of these and the movement in opportunity and external risks are detailed in the report. It also sets out how these are being managed and reduced. Again, I'm sure Cabinet have read this and are asked to just note the current strategic risks and mitigating actions being taken to reduce within tolerance. Again, we received no further form statements or questions. Any Cabinet members want to comment? No? In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 26, Finance Outturn Report, P8 or Quarter 3. The finance report for Quarter 3, 23-24 constitutes a full detailed report on the Council's forecast revenue and capital position for the full year. At Quarter 3, the Council is forecasting to deliver an overspend of 5.5 million at the full year against the approved general fund budget of 483.5 million, that's a 1.1% overspend. Additional risks and opportunities which have the potential to impact the general fund are currently assessed as presenting a weighted net risk of 0.6 million. The forecast outturn includes the planned delivery of 37.3 million of savings, except where risk of non-delivery has been included in the 0.6 million net risk or within forecast pressures, with 30.5 million of savings considered safe. Housing revenue account is forecasting a 0.2 million underspend at the full year against its approved budget. Any under or overspend will be balanced through HRA general reserves at the full year close. The dedicated schools grant is forecasting a mitigated 16.4 million full year overspend against its 452 million budget. This level of overspend will bring the DSG's carry forward deficit at the close of 23-24 to 56.1 million. Public Health forecasts no variance to its ring-fenced annual budget of 35.7 million. The capital programme forecasts variance at Quarter 3 of 1.5 million underspend. This variance represents a 2.3 million overspend on general fund capital investment and combines with a 3.8 million underspend on the HRA's capital programme. The following decisions are requested. Firstly, to accept and spend £170,000 6-month extension to the Active Travel Capability and Ambition Fund. Secondly, to apply for and thereafter draw down 600k feasibility and development funding in the South Bristol Livable Neighbourhood Fund, and to accept a further 670,000 of investment funding for the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement Programme, all 3 of which are granted by WECA. Finally, Cabinet is asked to authorise the write-off of 430,000 of previously approved budget savings initiatives. On this report, we've received no public forum statements or questions. Any Cabinet members want to comment? No? In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report. Agenda item 27, Bristol's Just Transition Declaration. I'll ask Councillor Marley Bennett to introduce this report.
Thank you. So earlier we approved the Mission Net Zero paper, which is a prime example of how we're already supporting the achievements of the Just Transition Declaration principles. And I want to thank the citizens who have led in this work with the support of the US Embassy, Kirsty Hammond from the Heart of BS13, Emma Gein, the Disability Climate Justice campaigner, Rachel Moffat from Bristol Energy Network, and Olivia Sweeney, a Black and Green Ambassador alumni. This declaration builds on our work since 2016 to deliver social and environmental justice hand in hand. We have invested more than 100 million in renewable energy and decarbonisation, secured Bristol City Leap, which plans on over £600 million of investment into clean energy by 2028, creating 1,000 jobs and cutting 150,000 tonnes of emissions, and planting tens of thousands of new trees. And we have supported communities, including Ambition Lawrence Weston, who have built the country's biggest onshore wind turbine, powering their community organisation and thousands of homes. This paper sets out further practical steps which we will take and endorse the declaration, including ensuring the annual business plan and any new corporate strategy prioritise actions that will actively contribute towards the principles of Bristol's Just Transition Declaration. We will consider in the declaration in our climate and ecological emergency action plans, embed a just transition into all our projects, and review our progress in 2 years' time. We recognise the importance of the declaration, but know that actions, not words, are what matter. We will continue to secure further climate investment into our city and ensure that nobody is left behind as we keep tackling the environmental and ecological crises.
Thanks. Marlene. On this report, we received no public forum statements or questions. Excuse me. Do any cabinet members wish to comment? I'll show you.
Yeah, I was going through the report and I just wanted to also, I think one of the things that the Just Transition, this work actually does as well, and kudos to the 4 individuals who brought this work together, but it also helps towards the work that was done by the Citizens Assembly, where we looked at how, local residents were also asking about how they were going to address the climate, how local residents can help towards our goals around climate emergency. So this is yet another kind of cog in that wheel to enable us to work with our citizens, so that you're absolutely right, the transition is just, but we also need to make sure that we're bringing those communities with us. Well done to all involved.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I mean, I think you probably said it, Marley, actions speak louder than words, don't they? And in the end, it's a holder on us and the next administration, however that looks, to make sure that we deliver a transition to a more carbon neutral economy, but that transition doesn't leave huge swathes of the community behind, which it could easily do if we're not careful. So I think it's a really important thing that we're doing here, and I'm proud that we've done this here in Bristol. Do any other cabinet members want to comment? No? In which case, Nicola.
Just to build on Ash's comment of just commending and bringing together 4 people who've got one big thing in common around actually working in their communities and with their communities to actually try and tackle something that is pretty overwhelming as a topic, and I think often across the city, north, south, east, west, we all feel a bit overwhelmed by this challenge, and so I'm really proud of the way that as the administration and the council we're hearing that and we support that and really empower individuals and organisations, charities across the city to grapple with this issue alongside us rather than a tell. It's a kind of learn together and a develop. So I'm really pleased. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. Okay, in which case I'll hand back to you, Marley, to take a decision, which I support. I'm going to get displayed on the screen.
Thank you. Yeah, working together isn't always easy, but to ensure something is going to be long-term and sustainable, it's the only approach you have to take. So I'd definitely echo the thanks that you made. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thanks, Marley. And now finally, agenda item 28, Barton House emergency evacuation. I'll ask Councillor Kydell to introduce this report.
Thank you, Craig. Just to note that this decision's already been taken under the emergency provisions of the council, and councillors have already been notified of it. Just in terms of the paper, it seeks to confirm the additional spend of 2.7 million, adding to the existing spend so far of 2.6 million pounds that was authorised under previous decisions on the Barton House evacuation. So the total spend now is £5.3 million, and that includes supporting temporary accommodation needs, including the extension of the Holiday Inn contract, and for all the remedial works to Barton House to enable the residents to return. So I wanted to thank the Barton House residents for their patience and resilience that they've shown so far, in which has been a very difficult situation and experience for them. We met with residents on the 9th of January here to update them on the latest situation. The most recent surveys, contractors have confirmed that the ties are in place and in good order to provide appropriate support, but some additional fireproofing is needed to ensure that these ties can do their job effectively. The latest investigation also confirms that the thickness of the concrete cover is generally good throughout the building, and where the cover is at its finished, there's a layer of block work or cement in place, adding additional protection. So we now have a greater confidence in the building safety measures than we had in November. However, we obviously recognise that some work is needed to make the block safe for residents to return. So we've already started that work, and we're in that phase at the moment. And I was at Barton House this afternoon inspecting those works. So they include the installation of a new central fire alarm system, and introducing new fireproofing measures at key locations around the block. So we also informed residents that we're aiming for them to move back to Barton House by Friday the 23rd of February, which is obviously contingent on the works going to plan, and I'm told that progress is being well made at the moment, so we expect that deadline or date to be met. So obviously just updating you with that situation and obviously confirming the spend as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Guy. And as you say, all councillors were notified when that decision was taken on the emergency protocols already. Do any cabinet members want to comment? No? No? In which case I'll hand back to you guys, take the decision which I support and we'll have it displayed on screen.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the decision to be made today, I approve the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you, Guy. And that is the end of today's Cabinet meeting. Thank you to everyone for attending. The date of the next Cabinet meeting is the 6th of February 2024. Thanks all.
Okay. I'm not looking at this.
I think it's stone.
These are stone, yes.
Yeah. But that's a lot of stuff, so she can't post that.
They're very good, right?
No, that's a lot of stuff.
You keep on here. Yeah, like
But yeah, I've got a lot of
Yeah. Well, it's all 4 unitary. It's the same as you said. The other thing is, the training house, the other thing is training house.
Because everyone's at the same spot. Because I'm meeting at Dawn, but I don't know how it's all.
Is he just waiting in the hallway when it happens? That's why people wait for stuff. Don't forget your logins, of course.
The stuff's in there.
The meeting's over, so it's
Okay, right, thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Alright. I would like to say I've won a prize.
Well, I think you're really bang on your back.
Cool, cheers. Thanks.
Can I grab your pass? Before we forget. Thank you very much. Cheers. Whichever way is quickest for you. There's a go back to the building. Do you know how to get out of doors too? On the kiosk there's a black circle raised plastic thing. Push the button in the middle. Push it with your finger, not with your hand.